Imagine standing on a dusty hill beneath a pale winter Sunday. In front of you, the land does not end in trees or mountains. It ends in spears and shields. Banners roll across the horizon. The murmur of marching feet drifts on the wind. Somewhere in that moving sea of armor are more than 26,000 soldiers. Around you, there are barely 500 knights. And at the center of this thin line of metal and faith sits a boy of 16 who should be in a sickbed, not in a saddle. His name is Baldwin, King of Jerusalem. Under the bright sky, with the wind tearing at his cloak, he looks every inch a ruler. Silver helm, long mail, a sword at his side. From far away, no one would guess that under the gloves his fingers are numb, that parts of his skin have lost their feeling, that the illness people whisper about is trying to claim his body. When he shifts in the saddle, pain moves with him, a dull shadow that never lets go. He has known this pain for years. It arrived quietly in his childhood and never left. Baldwin did not grow up in a peaceful country. His home is the Holy Land, a narrow strip of earth fought over by empires and kings. Stone cities and dry hills rise from the dust. Crowded markets echo with languages from many lands. Pilgrims come to touch places they believe are sacred. Merchants come to seek profit. Armies come to decide who will rule its walls and roads. Long before Baldwin was born, warriors from distant shores crossed the sea and carved out a kingdom that they called Jerusalem. It stands bright but fragile, always watched by those who would take it. From the beginning, Baldwin learns that his crown is not a gift. It is a burden that must be defended every single day. Yet even inside the palace, he cannot escape another enemy. It begins as a strange numbness in his arm during a riding lesson, a finger that does not bend the way it should, a patch of skin that does not feel the touch of water. The adults around him try to smile, but their eyes are worried. Doors close a little more quickly behind him. Conversations fall silent when he steps into a room. The disease that clings to Baldwin carries a terrible weight in the minds of his people. In his world, to be a king is to be strong, untouchable, chosen by God. To be sick in this way is to be marked as unclean and fragile. Baldwin is taught to hold his head high at ceremonies, to ride in front of processions as if nothing is wrong. But he can see the doubt in the eyes of nobles, who are already asking themselves how long a sick boy can keep such a dangerous kingdom alive. While Baldwin struggles against his own body far beyond the walls of Jerusalem, another power is rising. Across deserts and river valleys, Saladin is gathering lands and loyalties the way a storm gathers clouds. He has proven himself as a commander and a ruler. City by city, stronghold by stronghold, he draws forces under his banner, uniting powers that were once broken by rivalry and pride. Where Baldwin rules a small and fragile kingdom, Saladin reaches for a realm that will stretch over Egypt, Syria, and beyond. For the people around Baldwin, Saladin is more than a name. He is a growing shadow at the edge of every map. Stories drift in from the frontiers of disciplined armies that move with purpose across the sand of towns that surrender, rather than face his siege of leaders who once swore they would never bend, now riding to his camp to ask for terms. Each new report tightens the air in the council chamber of Jerusalem. Each new rumor makes the young king feel the weight of his crown and his illness more heavily on his shoulders. Two worlds are taking shape. On one side stands Baldwin, a teenager, whose hands sometimes tremble when the pain flares, but whose will hardens every time someone underestimates him. His kingdom is small, its borders fragile, its nobles divided. On the other side stands Saladin, a seasoned ruler with growing power and the calm of a man who has watched victory follow him from one campaign to the next. Between them lies the Holy Land, the roads of pilgrims, the homes of farmers and traders who simply want to live in peace. Soon a line will be drawn on a field near a place called Montgisard. 500 knights will ride at the side of a sick young king. Tens of thousands of soldiers will stand under a banner that seems impossible to resist. From a distance, it will look like a mistake, like a story that can only end one way. Yet history remembers this day for a reason. Something will happen on that ground that no one on either side truly expects. And it begins with a boy who decides that illness and fear will not be the ones to rule his future. That decision is tested sooner than anyone in Jerusalem expects. Word spreads first, as a whisper from the southern roads. Riders arrive at the city gates with dust in their hair and fear in their voices. They speak of Saladin on the move again, not with a small raiding party, but with an army that seems to pull half the horizon along with it. Columns of cavalry, long lines of infantry, wagon trains loaded with supplies. Scouts count banners until numbers stop meaning anything. Far to the south, villages feel the weight of that advance before anyone else. Fields that were yellow with grain a week earlier now lie trampled and empty. Doors hang broken on their hinges. Smoke rises in thin gray lines where homes once stood. Families who can still run take to the roads, clutching what little they can carry. Those who reach the patrols of the kingdom tell the same story in different words. There are too many. They are moving too fast. And they are coming north. Inside Jerusalem, the air itself seems tighter. The markets are still open, but people talk in short, clipped sentences. Everyone knows that the main army of the kingdom is far away in the north with other lords. What remains in the capital is a fraction of its strength. Enough to guard walls, perhaps. Not enough, most believe, to face Saladin in the open. In the cool stone hall of the royal palace, Baldwin calls his council. The great room fills with the shuffle of boots and the rustle of fine cloth. Nobles who have known the boy since he was a child stand beside hardened knights who have seen more battlefields than birthdays. Candles flicker along the walls, throwing long shadows over the maps spread across the central table. Thin lines of ink-marked borders and roads, but they cannot capture the storm that is rolling toward them. A lord with gray in his beard speaks first. His voice is calm but tight. "Your Majesty, we cannot risk the field. We do not have enough men. Let Saladin exhaust himself in the countryside. We close the gates, we hold the walls, we wait for help from the north." Another man slams a fist lightly on the table, careful not to disturb the ink. "And surrender the whole kingdom outside these walls in the meantime. If we hide, he will burn every village, take every road, seize every well. When we finally come out, there will be nothing left to defend." Voices rise and fall. Some argue that the city is the heart of everything and must be protected at all costs. Others insist that if they act like prey, Saladin will treat them like prey. The discussion turns sharp, then circles back on itself. Stay, go, wait, act. Every path seems to lead toward danger. Baldwin listens. He leans on the table, hands resting near the maps, feeling the numbness in his fingers as a familiar reminder that time is never fully on his side. Fragments of the conversation wash over him, but underneath the noise a simple picture forms. If they retreat into the city, they hand the open land to their enemy. If they let the villages burn, the people will lose faith not only in their army but in their king. At last he straightens and the room slowly quiets. "If we shut ourselves behind these walls," Baldwin says, his voice clear but not loud, "then we are already telling our people that we are afraid. We will not keep a kingdom by hiding from it." A few men glance at one another. One counselor steps forward, choosing his words carefully. "Your Majesty, you are brave. No one doubts that. But we are talking about a few thousand men, at best, against tens of thousands. Even a strong king at the height of his health would hesitate." Baldwin does not flinch at the mention of health. He has heard the softer versions of that sentence all his life. He shakes his head slowly. "Then let Saladin hesitate," he replies. "Let him wonder why a sick king with a small army is riding toward him instead of away. If we wait for the perfect moment, it will never come. We have this moment. We still have knights who can fight. We still have a chance to strike while he is spread out across the land." Silence falls. In that silence, the line is drawn. Stay and watch the kingdom suffer, or ride and meet the danger before it grows even larger. One by one, the resistance in the room begins to soften, not because the danger has shrunk, but because they see that their king has already made peace with it. Orders are given. Messengers run through the corridors. Bells call the knights of the city to the palace courtyard. Armor is hauled from racks. Horses are saddled and checked. Straps are tightened and retightened. The usually casual noise of the stables is replaced by focused, efficient movement. In the courtyard, Baldwin watches his small army assemble. Sunlight glints off helmets and shields. The banners of the kingdom and of the knightly orders lift and snap in the wind. He can see the fear in some eyes, but he can also see something else taking its place as they look up at the walls and realize the king is riding with them, not watching from a window. A young knight near the front adjusts his grip on his reins, glances at his friend, and murmurs just loud enough for those nearby to hear. If the king can face this, what excuse do we have to be afraid? There is a nervous laugh, short but real. Someone answers. Then we ride and we see what happens on that field. When Baldwin mounts his horse, the effort sends a flash of pain through his limbs. For a moment he closes his eyes, letting the wave pass. Then he opens them and signals the standard bearer to raise the banner high. The gates of Jerusalem do not close behind a frightened city that day. They open for a column of riders heading toward an army that outnumbers them many times over. Hooves strike the road in a steady rhythm, beating out a choice that has already been made. They will not wait for the storm to break over them. They will ride into it. They ride into it not straight at the storm, but along the edge where land meets sea. The road curves close to the coastline, sometimes so near that the riders can hear waves hitting the rocks below. The air changes there. It smells of salt and seaweed instead of smoke and dust. For a while, the wind coming off the water is cool against their faces, and the rhythm of hooves on packed earth is almost calming. But the calm never lasts long. Every few miles they pass reminders of why they are on this road at all. A farmhouse with its roof, burned out stone walls still standing but blackened. A field where crops have been cut down, not neatly harvested but hacked and crushed underfoot. A well with its rope cut and bucket missing. The signs of an army that has moved through, taken what it wanted, and kept going. The men notice everything. Some glance away, unwilling to stare too long at what could happen to their own homes if they fail. Others look directly, as if trying to memorize the cost of hesitating. One knight makes the sign of the cross each time they pass a ruined house. Another simply grips his reins more tightly and rides on. Scouts move like shadows ahead of the column, slipping off the road into scrub and low hills. They disappear for hours at a time, then reappear with dust on their cloaks and new lines of worry on their faces. When they reach Baldwin, they speak quietly, but the news travels quickly through the ranks. Saladin's army is near, they say, but it is stretched out. Small forces are scattered across the countryside, collecting supplies, searching for more food and water. Wagons and baggage animals move slowly. Units are separated by distance instead of marching as one tight block. Baldwin listens to each report, asking short, clear questions. How many here? How far between those groups? How many hours ahead? He does not need perfect numbers. What he needs is a picture in his mind, and that picture is beginning to form. An army strong enough to crush them, but temporarily thinned out by its own hunger and ambition. As the sun lowers, the column turns slightly inland and finally halts near a low rise not far from a place called Montgisard. There is still enough daylight left to set up camp. Men slide from their saddles, legs, stiff backs, aching from the long ride. Some move with the easy habit of soldiers who have camped on too many roads to count. Others are younger, feeling for the first time that this might not be a journey they return from. Fires are lit in small circles, their glow pushing back the first fingers of night. Pots are set on the coals, water skins are passed around, the smell of simple food mixes with the faint tang of sweat and leather. From a distance, the camp looks like a scattering of tiny stars on the darkening earth. Near one of the fires, a group of knights sit together, helmets off faces, drawn but alert. One of them stares into the flames and says quietly, they say, "His army is still bigger than anything we have ever seen." Another shrugs, poking at the fire with a stick. Then, it'll be a story worth telling whatever happens. A third knight, younger than the others, tries to smile. "I did not ride out here to watch from a wall. If this is the field where we stand, at least we chose it." Their voices rise and fall, never too loud. Some speak of home, of families in the city, or lands further away. Some talk about nothing important at all, just to have the sound of normal conversation in their ears for one more night. Between the circles of light, others kneel with heads bowed, whispering prayers into their hands. Baldwin walks through the camp with a small guard, his cloak wrapped around him against the deepening chill. Men stand as he passes, or at least straighten where they sit. He answers their greetings with a nod or a word, doing his best to look steady and unshaken. When he reaches the edge of the camp, he pauses and looks back. From here you can see the whole scene: fires, figures, horses shifting in the shadows. So few compared to the stories of the army coming toward them. He feels the ache in his limbs more sharply in the cold. The illness has been a quiet companion all day, but now with the adrenaline fading, it presses in harder. He flexes his hands inside his gloves and feels that familiar lack of sensation in parts of his skin. It would be so easy to focus only on that weakness, to let it define everything he is about to do. Instead, he closes his eyes for a moment and forces his thoughts elsewhere. He thinks about the walls of Jerusalem, about the faces of the people who lined the streets when he rode out. He remembers the doubt he has seen in the eyes of nobles and ambassadors, all wondering if a sick teenager can hold a kingdom together. His whisper is almost lost in the wind. Tomorrow we find out. A chaplain approaches quietly and offers to pray with him. Baldwin agrees. They step a little aside, not far from the nearest fire, but close enough to feel its warmth. The chaplain speaks words of faith and courage, but Baldwin's own prayer is simpler and more personal. Not for a miracle that erases all danger, but for the strength to face what he has chosen, and for his men to see that he will not hide behind them when the lines clash. When the prayer is over, he lingers there a moment longer, watching sparks float up into the night. Above them, the sky is clear, stars cold and distant. Somewhere out there, another camp is forming, much larger, much louder, spread across the land, like a second sky of shifting lights. Back at his own small fire, Baldwin settles on a blanket armor, loosened but not removed. He will sleep in it, as will many of his knights. The ground is hard, and every movement sends little messages of pain through his body, but exhaustion begins to push his eyes closed. Around him, the camp slowly quiets voices, fading into low murmurs, then into silence. This is the breath held before the shout, the last stillness before steel meets will. Tonight, fear and faith share the same narrow space in every heart. By this time tomorrow, the name Montgisard will either be a wound or a legend. For now, it is only a field waiting for dawn. Dawn comes not with a loud crash, but with a slow, pale light that turns the field of Montgisard from shadow into shape. Baldwin wakes to the sound of movement more than anything else, armor clinking softly, horses snorting as they are led to water, low voices exchanging last bits of news. When he sits up, his muscles protest, and the familiar ache of illness reminds him that his body would rather be anywhere else. He ignores it. He has no intention of letting pain make the first decision of the day. The camp shakes off sleep quickly. Fires are stirred back to life for a brief, simple meal. Straps are tightened, helmets fastened, saddles checked again and again. The easy talk of the night before is gone, replaced by focused silence. Every man knows now that the waiting is over. Scouts return with final reports. One of them, dust on his face and tension in his shoulders, bows his head to Baldwin. They are close, Majesty. Their main force is moving this way, but they are still stretched out. Some are looking for food, some are guarding the baggage. They did not expect anyone to be standing in their path. A knight nearby lets out a breath that is almost a laugh. Then today we will be their surprise. Baldwin studies the land as his men form up. The field rises gently, offering a slight height advantage. The ground is firm enough for horses to find good footing. In the distance, as the sun climbs higher, he begins to see what the scouts described. Dust first, then glints of metal, then the slow rolling lines of a vast army on the move. Saladin's forces look endless from this distance, a long ribbon of men and animals that curves across the land. Some parts of that ribbon are dense with soldiers. Others are looser, broken by wagons or groups that have lagged behind. It is not yet a perfect wall of shields and spears. It is a giant in mid-step, powerful but not fully braced. Baldwin feels his heartbeat quicken. This is the sight that would make any rational leader want to turn back to run for stone walls and high towers. But there are no walls here, only choices. He looks down the line of his own small army, 500 knights. Men he has walked among, spoken to, prayed beside. Behind them, infantry and support troops stand as straight as they can, eyes fixed on their king. One of his commanders rides up beside him. If we wait too long, Majesty, they will have time to close their ranks. I know, Baldwin answers. He draws in a breath, tasting dust and salt and the edge of fear. Then he lets it out slowly. Inside, a calm settles over the fear, not because the danger has diminished, but because he has finally reached the moment he has been pushing towards since he left Jerusalem. There is nothing more to plan. There is only this. He signals for the standard bearing the cross to be brought forward. As it moves ahead of the line, fluttering in the rising wind, conversations die away. Every eye follows it. Baldwin raises his voice so that those nearest can hear, and his words can be carried down the line. Men of Jerusalem, he calls, they believe we will break. They believe we will be one more story of a small kingdom crushed and forgotten. Today we decide what is remembered. He turns his horse slightly so he can see as many faces as possible. You have seen what they left behind them. Villages burned, fields ruined. If we let them pass, there will be nothing left for us to defend. So we will not let them pass. We will hit them before they can set their feet. We will strike as one with all the strength we have. The words are not long or polished, but they are real. In them, the knights hear not a distant ruler, but the young man who chose to ride with them, when every argument said he should stay behind. Blades are lifted in silent agreement. Lower lances comes the command along the front. A rustle of movement runs down the line as heavy spears are brought to the ready. Horses shift, sensing the tension in their riders. Baldwin raises his hand, holds it there for one long heartbeat as he looks toward the approaching mass of Saladin's army and then drops it. The order to advance rolls out. Hooves begin to move slow at first, then faster. The knights of Jerusalem and the orders beside them start their charge. The rhythm of hundreds of horses builds from a soft drumming into a steady growing thunder that carries across the field. From the other side, some of Saladin's men turn to look, expecting perhaps a small patrol, a token resistance. What they see instead is a solid line of armored riders, focused and closing the distance with every breath. Shouts rise as officers try to shape their scattered units into a proper formation. Orders are given: hands, wave, flags, signal. But the timing is against them. As the space between the two forces shrinks, the world narrows for Baldwin to the path directly ahead. The sounds behind him blur. The weight of his body and armor presses into the saddle. The lance in his hand feels heavier and lighter at the same time. He can see individual faces now in the front ranks of the opposing troops, some still adjusting shields, some still glancing over their shoulders for commands that will come too late. Then contact. The front of the charge hits the unsettled line of Saladin's forward elements, with a force that feels like the sky itself dropping down. There is no need for detailed description of what happens in those first seconds. It is impact, pressure, momentum. The tight formation of the knights drives into a section of the larger army that was not ready to receive such a focused blow. Men on foot are pushed back, forced sideways, forced apart. Horses trained for battle push through gaps that were not there a moment before. Behind Baldwin, more riders press in, adding their weight to the point of the attack. The charge does not stop at the first touch. It continues carving a path, deeper disrupting lines that were still forming. Along the flanks, smaller groups of Jerusalem's forces engage other sections of the scattered enemy. They are outnumbered in every small clash, but they are coordinated while many of their opponents are still trying to figure out where to stand. Confusion begins to spread like cracks through glass. In the midst of it, Baldwin keeps moving. His world is noise and effort, but inside he holds onto one clear thought: do not stop. If they stop, the weight of numbers will fold over them. If they keep pressing, they might turn the imbalance of preparation into a chance. That chance appears first as hesitation in the enemy's eyes, a unit that begins to pull back instead of holding firm. Another that wavers when it sees its neighbors breaking ranks. Shouts turn from commands to questions. Lines that were meant to be straight become bent, then jagged. What began as a confident advance for Saladin's army starts to look like a scramble. Units further back, seeing dust and disorder ahead, misread the situation. Some think a retreat has already begun and start to pull away to avoid being trapped. Others try to push forward and only add to the congestion. From the outside, from the vantage point of history, it is easy to say a great army broke. On the field, in that moment, it is 100 small decisions made in fear and uncertainty. Step back, turn aside, look for safer ground. Before long, those small decisions ripple outward into something much bigger. Baldwin's knights, driven by the knowledge that this is their only hope, keep their formation as best they can and push into the widening cracks. The more the enemy hesitates, the more courage they find. What seemed impossible at sunrise starts to feel, if not safe, at least real. The giant in front of them is not a single solid shape. It can be shaken. It can be split. By the time the sun climbs higher, parts of Saladin's force are no longer trying to hold the line. They are trying to get away from the chaos at the center. The great army that was supposed to sweep aside all resistance begins to pull back, then spills away from the field in uneven waves. On the rise near Montgisard, a small banner bearing the cross still flies in the wind. Around it gather riders whose armor is scuffed and whose bodies are exhausted, but who are still standing. Against all reasonable odds, the charge has struck the heart of the storm and found it vulnerable. When that storm finally breaks, it does not end with a cheer. It ends with heavy breathing and stunned silence. The field of Montgisard is no longer a clean canvas of dust and sunlight. It is marked by churned earth, dropped shields, broken spears, and the long shadows of men and horses trying to catch their breath. The great army that was meant to sweep everything aside is pulling away in the distance, shrinking with every uncertain step it takes toward the horizon. Baldwin sits his horse on the rise for a long moment, as if his mind needs time to accept what his eyes are seeing. His arm feels numb not only from the illness but from the impact of the charge. His lungs burn. Every muscle complains. Yet the most powerful sensation is disbelief. They are still here. They did not disappear beneath that wave. Around him, knights slowly gather, forming a loose circle near the banner. Some have lost helmets. Some lean forward in their saddles, too tired to sit fully upright. Others slide to the ground and stand there a moment, staring at their own hands, as if checking that they are really still attached, that they are really still alive. One of the younger knights lets out a shaky laugh. "Is it over?" he asks no one in particular. An older companion answers, voice rough. "For today," the words hang there honest and heavy, "victory has a price." They can feel it in the empty spaces where friends should be standing, in the quiet of those who do not answer when names are called. There is relief deep and fierce. There is also grief. Both emotions move side by side through the tired ranks. Baldwin finally speaks, his voice softer, now meant more for the men nearest to him than for history. "You stood when everyone said we would fall. Remember that. Whatever tomorrow brings, remember what you did here today." In the days that follow, word of Montgisard spreads faster than the dust of retreating armies. Stories carry across the Holy Land and beyond. People hear that a sick young king and a few hundred knights met a force many times their size and sent it reeling. The details will be argued over for years, but the heart of the story is clear. The kingdom was not crushed that day. It pushed back. Baldwin does not turn the battlefield into a simple trophy. He chooses instead to mark it as something sacred. At Montgisard, a monastery is built, a place of prayer and memory. Stones rise where tents once stood, and songs of worship replace the sounds of hooves and shouted commands. Travelers passing by in later years see the building and hear the story. They are reminded that this quiet ground was once the stage for a moment, when courage outweighed logic, at least for a day. Of course, history does not freeze after one miracle. Time keeps moving. Saladin learns from his defeat. He regathers his strength, reorganizes his forces, and waits for an opportunity of his own. Years later, on another field called Hattin, the balance tips his way. The kingdom that Baldwin fought to protect is struck hard. Jerusalem eventually falls. Flags change on the city walls. So was Montgisard, just a brief flicker before the dark. Some might say yes, but look a little closer and you can see something more. Montgisard becomes part of a larger story that is not only about borders and crowns. It is about what people choose to do when they are told the odds are impossible. It is about a king who could have stayed behind stone, who could have let his illness define every choice and yet rode out anyway. For us today, far from those hills and centuries, the details of armor and banners are distant. What stays close is the feeling behind the choices. Almost everyone listening to this has stood or will stand in their own version of that field. Maybe not with lances and helmets, but with bills pressure, family worries, illness, or doubt stacking up like an army on the horizon. You look at what you have and it does not seem like enough. You look at yourself and wonder if you are strong enough. In those moments, Montgisard still speaks. It does not promise easy wins. Even Baldwin's victory did not save his kingdom forever. Life is not a story where one brave day fixes everything. But that battle says something powerful. The size of the challenge does not always decide the ending. The choice to act, to stand, to ride out anyway, changes more than we expect. It changes us. It changes the people watching us. Sometimes it even changes history. Think about the men around Baldwin on that morning. Many of them were not legends. They were not the strongest or the most famous soldiers in the world. They were people who were afraid and tired, who probably wanted to be home but who decided to trust their king and each other one more time. Their names may be forgotten, but their decision is not. That is the real legacy of Montgisard. So as you hear this story and picture that thin line of 500 riders facing a moving sea of thousands, ask yourself a simple question. Where in your life do you feel outnumbered? And what would it look like to take one brave step forward anyway? If this story of a sick young king, a small army, and a field that became a legend made you think about your own battles, I invite you to stay with this channel. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder that being outnumbered is not the same as being finished. Tell me in the comments what moment in your life felt like your own Montgisard. And if you want more stories like this, more forgotten corners of history that still speak to us today, make sure you subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Because somewhere between fear and faith, between logic and courage, that is where the most human stories live, and Montgisard is one of them.